Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Collabversation version 2.0. And this is the long form recording, the Collabversation. And I'm also going to start recording the shorter form version. So the two will be going in parallel. The shorter form version will be a subset of the longer form. And here goes the start of the recording of the shorter form version, which I will start and stop, but the longer form will continue. Recording shorter form Collabversation in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Collabversation version 2.0. And a similar format as version 1.0, we're doing 2 recordings in parallel. The longer form that's basically just hit record and let it run without pausing, other than when someone requests a pause, and then we pause all recording. But short of that, this version right now that we're recording, the Collabversation, and these get posted as 2 separate YouTube videos. The Collabversation is the shorter one. Collabversation is the longer one. We'll be stopping and starting this one. Okay, so I just paused the Collabversation, shorter one. And let me get ready to screen share. And let's see. So I'm going to resume recording Collabversation. So here on the Collabversation, what we are undertaking is successive iterations on a very concise expression of both a new story for humanity and the most urgent solutions and the pathway to accomplish all of these solutions, all under this new story. And so the Collabversation is different successive iterations of the Collabversation. The shorter form it's like a constant refining process, refining until we get it right. Think of a ballet dancers just starting out and then doing a dance over and over and over until they get it perfected. That's what we're up to here. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share and do some sketching here of more precisely what I'm talking about. So we're creating, first of all, a mashup of 2 words, collaboration and conversation. This is a collaborative conversation. Mash these 2 up and we get Collabversation, which is the long form. And a subset of that, and I'll use subset notation, is the Collabversation, which is more concise. And the ultimate goal of this is to refine and refine and refine until we get to what I'm calling a concisation, which is the most concise. It's not only the most concise, but it's the most refined form of what exactly? The what is a new story for humanity that can go out not just as a meme, but this is kind of a new kind of meme. It's a new story for humanity in conversational form, right? In other words, it doesn't just go out as, hey, watch this video, but it's more like, hey, let's have this conversation. That's the concisation, and I refer to it as the concisation because the goal is to come up with a singular concisation, which includes, yes, it includes a new story for humanity. It also includes the key solutions that we must implement in order to save, heal, and transform life on Earth. To save, heal, and transform life on Earth. That's the goal. And so let's have the Collabversation, and capturing the long form here, Collabversation, to get there. So I'm going to start out with kind of just some, essentially some context. And the context is that we have, among myriad other problems, I would say the two most urgent problems for us to solve to even have a crack at the big goal, right? I'm going to change this up a little bit up here. What is the goal? The goal is to save, heal, and transform life on Earth. So the two most urgent problems that we need to solve in order to even have a crack at achieving our goal of saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth, we have exponential planetary overheating, and we have the destruction of the biosphere. Okay. These are the two biggies. I'm going to go off screen share for a minute to talk about this. The planet is overheating exponentially to the extent that perhaps within a couple of years or so, it will be so hot that we'll have massive crop failures, massive sea level rise, extreme weather, like even more extreme than we've seen in the last year, the last 12 months. And this exponential will continue until we're maybe, the last time we saw anything like this was like 300 million years ago, I think in the Pliocene. Guy McPherson covers it extensively. I don't try to remember all the terms and exact dates, but temperatures spiked in a matter of years on the order of 10 degrees centigrade, right? And at last count, Professor McPherson has identified no fewer than 67 self-reinforcing feedback loops, all driving this and nothing opposing it. So the good news is that we have the means to stop this mad exponential and actually reverse it. And there's a singular set of levers that are all under the umbrella of SRM, solar radiation management, which we can throw. Which levers within that umbrella of SRM, we can talk about that and we can figure out what's the optimal mix. But the bottom line is we have the means to stop it, right? And in the other parallel problem, which is both caused by, to a large extent, exponential planetary overheating, but also causing exponential planetary overheating, is the destruction of the biosphere. So it's its own mega self-reinforcing feedback loop. The planet's overheating, therefore the Amazon, Australia, California, Greenland, parts all over the world are susceptible to drying out and becoming a tinderbox, and very susceptible to wildfires, forest fires, etc. And so the planet is burning up. Because the Amazon is burning, it has become, and because it's so dried out and so devastated, again, largely because of exponential planetary overheating, but then of course you have a bunch of human beings setting fires and chopping down forests and converting the Amazon to animal agriculture. Because you have a lot of that going on as well, you really have two things driving the destruction of the biosphere. You have exponential planetary overheating, which is driven by a whole bunch of factors. And then you have intentional destruction, intentional harm caused by humans. Those are the two big things. I'm going to pause. Okay, so I've paused the Collabversation to let us kind of catch our breath a minute here. which I love to do. But of course, the recording on the Collabversation continues. Yeah, really, I just kind of want to catch my breath and then plan out what we're going to say next. I kind of want to draw a picture here. Here, let me screen share. Here, let me do a better circle for Mother Earth. Okay. And I kind of like the drawing I was doing earlier. Oh, we got Jordan Merrill entering. Let me pause recording. 1. All right, welcome back to recording, and welcome back Danielle and Gabriel and Glo and everyone. And Jordan, so I'm going to recap for folks what we've been talking about. So precisely because things have gotten to a point of such extreme urgency, and I would add on top of the extreme urgency, which we all agree to, we're also reaching a moment of extreme obviousness relative to exactly what we need to do in order to save, heal, and transform life on Earth as the big overarching objective. So we're kind of at a fork in the road right now. Either we continue kind of bumbling along as the planet and humanity continues in a downward death spiral, or we make the radical gear shift that we need to make. And I understand that there's a lot of different points of view as to, what's entailed and what do we need to do and what do we need to do first, second, and third. And so we keep talking about it, and that's great. But we're shifting gears into a new form of talking that is essentially a boiling down and getting way more tight and concise. And so let me, I'm going to screen share in a minute to show some, just kind of a sketch of what I'm talking about. But the idea here is what we're recording right now. There's a name for it. It's called the collab. It's one word, but the first letters are collab, as in collaboration. But the rest of it is collabversation. So it's a mashup between collaboration and conversation. So it's a collaborative conversation that we're having right now. Very long form. It goes for, at least a couple hours at a time usually. And in parallel with that, from time to time, I will do a separate recording, which I will pause and then restart and pause and restart, which is called, and I'm going to screen share for this just so you can see see the words that I'm talking about. Screen sharing some sketch. Okay, so again, we've got collaboration and conversation. The two of these are joining to form this new word, collaboration. And it's a long word, and that's appropriate because it's a long format. A shorter format is a subset of that, and that's the collaboration, which we're not recording yet, which we do stop and start, and therefore it's much more concise. And kind of the holy grail that we're aiming towards is this thing I'm calling a concisation, the most concise expression of the new story for humanity and exactly what we need to do in order to save, heal, and transform life on Earth. And I'm calling it the concisation. It doesn't exist yet. It's what we're striving towards, because I believe it's singular. I think there is a singular path we need to take now. I mean, we've gotten to a point that there is that the exponential planetary overheating has reached such a fever pitch, and the death spiral is so steep and vicious at this point that I believe there is exactly one path forward in terms of the obvious radical solutions we need to implement, basically now or never. And so this concisation is the most concise, the most refined expression of what exactly? So here are the components. There's a new story for humanity that we're creating that basically starts with, you know, we were in the dark for a long time. We were being unconscious, very unconscious as a species, and we let all this death and destruction continue and accelerate, and now exponentiate. But it's a new story for humanity in conversational form, right? So it's not just like a 2-minute video that goes out and everybody watch it. It's a conversation, right? But again, in very concise form, like, hey, here's the essence, here's what's happening. And this concisation that we're striving towards, in addition to having a new story for humanity, includes the key solutions that we need to implement in order to achieve our singular goal of saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. So those are the main elements. And we start with a context, and that context begins with the two most urgent problems we're facing: exponential planetary overheating and destruction of the biosphere, like destruction of the Amazon, the burning of Australia, the wildfires all over the place, as well as, and here's where I will start recording in a moment, continue the recording of the concisation. But first, let me get off screen share and just check in with everyone, because after all, this is a conversation, not a monologue. So any questions or comments before I proceed?
Danielle, did you see this? I think it would be amazing to like turn that, like use what we're doing in Canva with what you're writing.
Yes, definitely.
One. All right, welcome back to the recording of the Collabversation, and I'll just take about a minute just to bring the newcomers up to speed on this powerful conversation. So we've combined two words, collaboration and conversation, to create a third word, collabversation. And that's a long word, and that's appropriate because the collabversation is long form, and we generally record for, you know, a couple hours or more, a long form conversation. Now, a subset of that is a shorter recording, which is on pause right now. And that's, we basically take away the B and you get a more concise word called collaboration. And it is also it's a much more concise form in the sense that we only record kind of new stuff that we say, wow, this we need to record. And so if at any point during the Collabversation, which we're having right now, you say, hey, I want to record something for the Collabversation, just say so and we'll record it. And so it is a much more concise expression of what we're talking about. Now, what are we talking about? We'll get to that in a minute. We're getting to it right now. And so this trend towards more going to less, think of it like a funnel or a filter. The ultimate expression of that is something that I'm calling the concisation, the most concise conversation that we can have. The most concise conversation focused on a new story for humanity, but not just a story that we publish and say, this is it, read it, and I hope you like it. But it's a new story for humanity in conversational form, which is what we're doing right now. We're talking about a new story for humanity with a very specific goal, that being to save, heal, and transform life on Earth in the midst of all the destruction that we're seeing all around us. And the new story for humanity is very much centered around the key solutions that we need to implement to achieve this goal of saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. And as part of the context for this, the two most urgent problems that I know of, among many urgent problems and opportunities, are these two. The first one, exponential planetary overheating. The planet is overheating exponentially. threatening all of complex life, including me and you and everyone on this call and all the crickets and butterflies and everyone and everything. And in parallel with that is a very related, intimately interrelated problem of the destruction of the biosphere, right? The burning and the slashing and burning of the Brazilian Amazon, making way for animal agriculture, the wildfires in Australia and California and Greenland and elsewhere around the world. So this is a really important part of our context right now. We have simply gotten to a place where we're not just teetering on the brink, but in a rapid descent as we lose hundreds of species per day, and as more and more, millions of acres are burned here, there, and everywhere, driving more species to extinction. And those two problems, planetary overheating and the destruction of the biosphere, are essentially a dyad where each one reinforces the other. So it's a vicious cycle where those are kind of the two most poignant expressions of the rapid and accelerating destruction of life on Earth that we're in the midst of right now. So as you can tell, I don't mince words when I talk about how urgent our situation is. And this is not because, sometimes people say, hey, you're sounding kind of alarmist, gloom and doom. And I sometimes make the following analogy. Okay, imagine there's this household, right, with a lot of stuff going on, including a lot of problems and a lot of opportunities. Maybe the father is alcoholic, the mother is on Quaaludes, the oldest son just got kicked out of school and joined a gang. The daughter is mixing it up with the wrong crowd and getting into drugs and stuff of her own. Meanwhile, the youngest kids are totally neglected and experiencing depression and even some suicidal thoughts. And at the same time, there's a lot of great opportunities out there for the individuals as well as for the family as a whole. And by the way, we just noticed that the house is on fire. So of all those problems and opportunities, what's our first call going to be? Is it going to be to the dad's sponsor at AA, the mother's therapist, the teenage son's truant officer, the teenage daughter's counselor, et cetera, the teachers of the two younger kids? Or is it going to be a 911 call to the fire department to say, hey, would you please come over and put out the fire? For me, the answer is obvious. We've got to put out the fire first and foremost, or there won't be a house and there won't be kids left because they're all going to get burned up and die of asphyxiation and exposure in the attic. I mean, I'm just stating the obvious here, right? And that analogy for me is very, very appropriate for this moment because the house is on fire. Yes, we've got all kinds of other problems and Trump and the coup and all the, yes. And by the way, it's not just, the world's not just full of other problems. There's opportunities for intentional communities, for new forms of media and expression and all kinds of stuff. And we'll get to some of those because some of those are actually critical path for what we're doing right now. In fact, this right here is an intentional community. We're here with some specific intentions. So I'm not poo-pooing any of the great myriad opportunities and problems out there that need to be addressed. I'm just saying, oh, by the way, the house is on fire. So let's be very thoughtful for a moment. What do we want to focus on? And what do we need to focus on first, second, and third if we actually want to save life on Earth, right? Any thoughts or comments or reactions or disagreements to what I just said? Please jump in, anyone, everyone. This is a long form conversation. Again, the concise stuff, you'll know when I do it because I'll say I'm now recording for the Collabversation, the more concise form. Again, with this holy grail of getting to it, the concisation, right? The most concise expression of that whole hypothetical situation of the dysfunctional family with the house on fire the concisation there boils down not just to one word, but 3 characters. 911, house on fire, get your butt over here and let's put it out. That's the start. That's not the end of the story, right? I want for the family to solve all of its problems and enjoy all of its opportunities, but we have to start somewhere. And the starting point is just, it's 911, house on fire, obvious. In our case, we've got to put out the planetary fire and the exponential planetary overheating. And the timescale to act is literally on the order of months. It used to be years, but we frittered away all those years. And before that, it was decades. Silent Spring was in 1964, I think, that the Silent Spring was published. We had decades at that point. And then 10 years ago, we had years. Well, we now have months, right? To take action before the final tipping points are busted through and we're just like on our way out, right? Any reactions, thoughts, disagreements, emotional outbursts, Jamin, you're crazy, etc. Going on mute so I can listen. And again, if you want to pause recording, just say so. We're recording the long form recording now, and intermittently we add to the concise recording. Yes, Ananda.
So most of my work has to do with how people live together and how they deal with change. Now, in this situation, we've got some people with their own concerns and issues and, personal, private, personality issues going on, and we have a fire. So it would behoove us to understand how it is that people deal with change. And there's a lot of material on that, but my favorite book ever in understanding how people deal with change or how they deal with emergencies is an old book called Who Moved My Cheese? And it's a small book. It's got 4 characters in it. I won't give it away, but it helps people understand their personality in dealing with change. And that's what we're all going through right now. And what helps me is I not only do this work, but I live it all the time. And I understand I have gained some compassion and some patience and some letting go and forgiving, and even just understanding people's personality and how they go through change. Now, the fire situation, everybody's stuff is going to show up right in the middle of the change, which is what we're seeing everywhere all over the world now. Their stuff is showing up. But if we study ourselves about how we deal with change and how other people deal with change, it brings for much more tolerance. And so the fact is, we're going to get through the disaster, whatever the disaster is, whether it's a house fire or a world fire, we're going to get through the change in a much more tolerant way if we understand how it is we deal with change. And that's an internal study, just like Jordan was talking about. He works with the kids and helps them understand their internal study first. So learn about yourself and the people around you. How do they deal with change? We all have a change personality. Find out what that is, and then study other people and their change personality. And together, when you understand, I know, I understand you. You deal with change on a, say, for example, you deal with change on a last minute urgent basis. Another person deals with change in a way where they just go run and hide and you can't approach them. You know, there's just four different personalities, and they're all very interesting. But it's some personal work we can do because all of us have lots of change to go through in the future of our planet. And if we're doing the change at the same time, we're tolerating each other and showing compassion, we're going to get through the change much easier. Signing out. I'm complete.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Wow. I would actually like to include a concise statement of what you just said in the Collabversation, the concise recording that we're currently on pause on, while in parallel recording the longer form, as I made clear earlier. And I would like to ask you, Ananda, 2 questions. Number 1, are you okay with that? And number 2, would you like to deliver that concise expression of what you just said, or would you rather that I recap it?
Fine. You can ask me questions if you like. Either way, I can recap it or you can.
Okay, great. We'll just make it a conversation. So we'll get to that as soon as we hear from anyone and everyone else who would like to share. So if you'd like to share, please jump in. All right, I see Danielle laughing, and that's a good sign. All right. Okay. Sounds like Danielle and Gabriel are having fun, and that's a really good sign. So I would like to now. So I'm going to start recording the concise version because I love what you just said, and I also want to maybe throw in a little bit of context about what I said about the house on fire, because that's revealing my personality in this situation, which is kind of emerging as a sort of a Marine Corps drill sergeant saying, all right, we've got this urgency and we need to do this. And I'm kind of poking fun at myself because that's not who I am. And but yet I'm seeing that emerge. And so I think, you know, being responsible for that is a good thing, and also being open to feedback and just working with each other as we work with this fire and other problems and opportunities. So with that, I'm going to start recording. I won't ask permission for recording the concisation, the Collabversation, the shorter part, because we're already recording, and I already have everyone's permission to record. So I'll just say recording for the Collabversation in 3, 2, 1. All right, resuming the Collabversation, we just hit on a couple of interesting areas. One is I gave an analogy, which I've given a number of times before, about a household that has a whole bunch of problems, and I listed a bunch of the problems and this and that. And then at the end of that description, I said, and oh, by the way, the house is on fire. And all that is context for the following question. Okay, what should that family focus on right now? First step, next step. What's the immediate action item? Is it to deal with the father's drinking problem? Is it to deal with the mother's drug abuse? Is it to deal with the fact that the 3-year-old just pooped in their pants? Or is it to call 911 and call the fire department to put the fire out? Now, in that case, the answer is obvious. Call the fire department. And that's, you know, for me, a great analogy of what we need to focus on right now for saving life on Earth. And I'll delve more into that. But as I wrapped up that little story, Ananda told us some really cool stuff, which I'd love to invite you to share if you'd like, Ananda, or I can recap as you wish. And you're on mute.
Yeah, go ahead and recap.
Okay, so what I took away, and you mentioned a book that I've seen before but haven't read, called Who Moved My Cheese? And it has to do with our personalities and dealing with change. And you used an interesting term called change personality. We all have a change personality. We're in the midst of very rapid change right now. And so each of our respective change personalities is coming out, and our personalities are interacting. And I kind of poked some fun at myself, and I said, well, it looks like my change personality includes an element of Marine Corps drill sergeant saying, we must do this, and it's urgent, and we got to do this right now. And I'm kind of laughing at myself as I say that, because that's not me, and it's not who I want to be. But an element of that's coming out. Another change personality is kind of the last minute urgent change personality. Another is the run and hide. So how do we deal with change, right? So if that was a fair recap, great. Feel free to add to it, Ananda.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not brushed up on the book right now, but they actually literally label 4 kinds of change makers. And a workshop that I used to do is I'd put a whole room of people together, and I would size them up with the kind of change making personality they had, and they all felt comfortable in their quadrant with the same kind of people that deal with change the way they do. And then I'd mix it up and I'd put the opposites together in a room and create a scenario, much just like what you just did. And the other 2 were observing. And so what that did for the group is it just helped people learn tolerance more. When I understand that your change personality has to do with just being a person that goes immediately into action, we're going to call on you on that personality type when there's an urgent need for action. We're not going to call on the person who it just wants to hide or avoid or freaks out, or anything like that. So I tell you what what you've inspired me to do is I'm go back to my old material and look up those 4 definite change personalities and come back a little more equipped. But the book is designed, it's got this maze where these little mice work their way through the maze every day, and they find their cheese, and they're all fat and comfy and the whole thing. And then one day the cheese starts to change. And so their personalities come out when they're, realizing that things are changing around them. And so the situation gets stronger and stronger, and they start living out their personality. Now, the one thing that I learned respect for in this process was that it helps you understand not only what kind of change personality you have, but what kind of change personalities the people around you have. You might want to do this little test in your family and just find out, well, what's your core change personality. But the main thing that I got from it was it helped me understand to notice when my cheese starts to change. When the change starts to happen, you can prepare yourself by understanding and knowing what kind of change personality you have. You can prepare yourself for change in a way where you can come out of the change situation with a lot less chaos and even violence than if you had not a clue about how you change or how other people change, or even the fact that the cheese is changing. And right now on our planet, the cheese is changing drastically. So just take a look inside yourself, do some studying on your change personality, and I'll come back another time, maybe even do a little workshop on it, or a little more explanation. But permanently, what that little education did for me is help me prepare for when change is happening in my life and understanding my personal change personality and the tolerance I learned from other people about how they deal with change.
I love it. I love it. I've just paused the Collabversation, which we can restart anytime. And in fact, if you'd like to speak into the Collabversation recording, just say, please, yes, Jamin, record this, and I will record it. Otherwise, in general, we'll be paused on the concise version. Kristen, so I see a thumbs up. Do you want to be added to the Collabversation recording? Okay, resuming recording. And Kristen, please unmute and take it away. Beautiful, yeah. Ananda. And yes, go ahead, Kristen.
Yeah, I just wanted to share
some insight that I had and kind of just reflect back to make sure that this is accurate to my understanding of what she's saying. But the insight that I gained was that there is the little bit of a difference that there is between the metaphor with the house on fire that we're working with, and that how this ties into what Ananda is saying is that, you know, in the house on fire, I mean, the obvious reaction first is, especially with the use of cell phones, is that, you know, the people just need to get out of the house. And it's a very immediate and clear action. Whereas with the earth being on fire, the earth like having all of these issues, it's not quite as clear, right? That there is this sort of like one thing that everyone has to do in order to save themselves. And I think that with what she's saying is that there's these very clear action makers and these other three personality types, which I'm not sure what they are. You know, I think really what our job is to do now is to really start identifying people and how they play a role in this. Like for me, I work with people in teaching emotional intelligence work and helping them deal with, you know, their anxiety or whatever is coming up. So, you know, people like me, it could be helpful for me to work with the people that are like in the freak out mode, you know, versus like someone that has a lot of energy that really has, you know, my partner, he's like, he makes an incredible amount of things happen, and he has like the energy to just keep going. And I'm just not that kind of a personality type. Like I, you know, kind of more work like a heart-based mode, and I have a few hours out of my day where I'm, you know, can really be like in work mode. So yeah, maybe I'm curious what everyone else has to add to that.
I love it. It feels to me like you just took what Ananda said and just totally built on it and said, okay, therefore, let's kind of organize ourselves and see, you know, which firefighters need to be way up on the ladder blasting the hose, which need to be on the radio coordinating logistics, right? Which need to be making sure the kids get out of the house right now. You know, it's kind of like, how do we divide and conquer, but also deal with the people who are in freak out mode. Those are probably not people who need to be yelled at and told orders right now, but rather they need to be, hey, let's go into a hugging circle. You know, while these other 47 firefighters are putting out the fire, let's have a little group here for the people who are in freak out mode, something like that. Anyway, that's my immediate reaction. I'm going to pause recording. Again, if you want to record to the concise version, just say, Jamin, record to the concise version. I call it a collabversation, but until people learn the word. Going on mute. Love to hear from others.
I'm curious, you know, if does anybody know what these other personality types are? I mean, that might help kind of give us a clue if we really are kind of trying to zone in on, you know, what our steps look like within this point in time.
I could look them up.
Actually, Michael just named them on a private message between Michael and I. He says there's the character named Sniff, one named Scurry, one named Hem, and one named Ha. Those are the names of the characters. Like I said, it's been a while since I've done any of these workshops, but each one of them are in a personality like what you described, Jamin. You know, there are people that they'll only be concerned with how everybody's doing. You know, they want to make sure the children are out and everybody's comfortable. Then you've got people who will take the leadership. Then you've got people who will take the action. And then you've got people who just freak out and run. And so I feel a little unprepared at this moment because I didn't know this was going to come up. But it would behoove everybody. In fact, you know, it would be cool to even start a open house on the Who Moved My Cheese book so we can all get a better understanding of how each other changes. That would be fun. We could do a workshop in there.
I'm all for that. All for that. Yeah. And just as a footnote, you know, we're in the process of reconfiguring the press conference to make that whole process happen more efficiently so that people can sign up to speak at the press conference, organize an open house, whether one time or recurring or whatever. And we can begin to divide and conquer that way. So love it, love it, love. In fact, I mean, essentially to your point, Kristen, and your point, Ananda, your multiple points is we need to organize ourselves, and the press conference and snack bar and the open houses and pretty much everything I do in my life, you know, here on Zoom, et cetera, is all precisely geared towards organizing ourselves to take the right actions we need to take.
And not only take the right action, but be comfortable in your arena. You know, just like I took the 4 groups of people and put them in their own quadrant with the kind of people that they changed, the kind of change makers that they are. And they were so comfortable. Oh, they just had so much fun being in the quadrant of people who understand them. And then, you know, we mixed it up and created some chaos, and they were, you know, kind of forced to show themselves, so to speak. And things got uncomfortable. But tolerance is the word I keep coming back to, is understanding how other people's personalities change in urgency, and how your own personality changes creates a lot of tolerance. And we're going to get a lot further as a united human race if we're tolerant of each other, rather than going, well, you shouldn't be up there, you know, hosing down the fire. You're a greeter. You know, you're a being person. You need to be out, you know, greeting everyone, make sure they have their blankets, and, you know. So we are all comfortable.
I have a question and a comment.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Claude.
So I really resonate with what you're saying and what Danielle was saying about her partner and everything. And first of all, I'm curious to know if you have if there's an image or something of the 4 quadrants. Second of all, I think that it would be really magical eventually, once we evolve from Zoom, to have just have a person that greets you when you come into the conversation. And then also you have the meditation. So if you want to go into a meditation before, just a clearing space before you enter whatever conversation's happening, that would be magical. And then also, I'm curious to know, as people change, we all have, within, the experience of life and what's going on, we're going to be in a different state of frequency. Like Jimin said, sometimes we need that space to be held and to have the fire circle. And so I'm curious to know, for me, I feel really resonant in being very in the masculine of being very action oriented, but then also I feel the need to have the connection field of going into a space of meditation. So I'm curious to know if that's something that you work on, Ananda, of organizing people, of how can I find that group that that really wants to take things, make things happen quickly, or not quickly, but strategically, but very action oriented. And yeah, I'm just curious on these things.
Ananda, did you want to respond?
Oh, was that directed at me?
The last part, yes.
Oh. I was multitasking. Could you please repeat your question?
I was just wondering if you have a diagram of the 4 different types of response, the changes, and then the people. And then what advice would you give to, oh, cool. Is there, can you send that to me, or can you send, I guess you can send me the link.
Yeah, it looks like the screen share right now has it up. Can you see the screen share?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll send you the link.
Yeah. Well, thanks for looking that up. I was going to look it up and come back at another time, but why do that? We have people here who can find it right away. So it takes quite a bit of studying to understand these personalities, and finding yourself in them, because you know, most of the time people will say, oh, I'm definitely the stabilizer, but then when you're in emergency, that's when your really true self comes out. You find out, actually, I'm not the stabilizer, I'm the unifier. And you know, we're all part of these. Everyone has a part of this in their personality. But if you put yourself in an emergency situation, your true self will come out, and the one that is most like you will show up. And what would behoove us is if we also understood the people around us and how they deal with change. Are they fast paced or slower pace? Are they results orientated? You know, what makes me tolerate you more? Does that help?
Yeah, it's very, sorry, it's really loud here. It's very interesting. I'm curious to know, like, you had mentioned before, like, oh, people hiding or running away. And I feel like right now I'm challenged by this, by wanting to run away from myself. And I see myself as a unifier, and I want to explore these more because I don't know actually what I would be. But also, what advice would you give to someone that wants to really push things forward, but be mindful of the space that we're creating, as we don't want to push people to the edge too much, but we also want to be very catalyzing and inspiring in action.
Yeah, the best thing I can offer is I'm a life coach and trainer and seminar speaker, and the best way people learn is experientially. So I would like to actually run the experiment of putting interested people in a room, in a Zoom room, and you know, run a workshop on it. And you can experientially see yourself in the position of you know, who you really are in the personality of change. And that's really the only way, unless you know, you could go get the book and you could study it and everything else, but until you're live with a bunch of other people in the room and you're challenged on your style of personality, all you're going to do is read about it like you read about everything else that's self-help. You have to really experience it. So and the results that I had in doing the workshops on these, I did them sometimes in large corporations with people that were very stuffy and, you know, very hidden and very
That's incredible. Is there like
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, no, I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm just wondering if you have a platform to do this workshop on, and like maybe you want to schedule that in the future so that we can share it and invite people from our network. Like, depends. Like, you wanted to kind of, as you said, people are not really open, but maybe having a group that's more open. Like, I'm super open. I want to be open source, and like, so basically inviting people that. I guess specific people, or I guess depends on what you do. How do you usually run the workshops?
You know what? I'm going to come back next week to the to this channel, and I'll be prepared with workshop material. And who's ever interested can go into a open house, and we can have a workshop on discovering our personality styles, or in change, dealing with change. So I'll put that together right now. I'm caught off guard because seriously, it's been 20 years since I did one of these workshops, and I'm glad that somebody rescued me with putting up the slide, you know, the screen share of what the personalities were. But let me do a little bit of preparation. I'll come back and offer an open house so that people can jump in if they like.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Do we have like a scheduled time so that we can like post it on the website and share it?
Next week, I'll come back prepared for that.
Well, what I would propose.
Oh, I mean, but
is,
if you want to, like, at this during the press conference, or
Yeah,
Yeah.
next week in the press conference, I'll come prepared. I'll get kind of my old materials out, and I'll prepare a workshop, and I'll have a time and date that I can announce to that, and we can go ahead and do that exploration work.
Yeah, I see this as so central to what we're doing here, that I would like to offer that we maybe take a Tuesday solution club and do, a multi-hour process with different breakout rooms. So like, for example, you might want to, and it could even be a recurring thing, so that maybe in the first session, you do what you do where you get people in with other people of their own personality type, so they can kind of find their home base and learn that it's okay. I'm not alone. There are others like me, and you know what? We're actually needed in the world, right? And maybe that would be the first session. And then maybe like a week later, we come back and mix it up a bit and get comfortable with getting uncomfortable and experiencing different personality types and all that. Because I mean, it's so clear right now that a Marine Corps drill sergeant is just not the answer, right? I mean, some people are just like, yes, sir, that's it. You're exactly what I needed. I needed that kind of leadership. Please continue to lead. And others are like, screw you, Jack. We don't need another dictator, especially after the last 4 years in the United States and what's being attempted now. But anyway, I'm really excited about this. Yes, Ananda.
Yeah, I was going to say, you practically named my process right there, without really knowing it. But I would like to recommend that between now and next week, when we actually nail a time for this, that everybody go get that book and read it, and do your homework and start studying yourself. Because if you come to the circle understanding, oh, I'm a scurry, or you have no idea what a scurry is, it's going to take you a while to discover that. So let's do our homework. Let's make it a book club. We'll all, on your own time, you can read the book. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon, or maybe even online somewhere. Yeah, let's take that step, because one of the requirements that I have before I ever do a workshop is that people read the book and get a feel for it. And they may not be right. They might have their personality all wrong, but that's what we start sifting out in the experiential process. And as far as leadership goes, it's understanding your personality change and claiming that and exercising that is not the same as being a dictator leader. You're just standing up for your style that you are comfortable with, and being true to yourself in that element. I come from the times of history back in the 60s and all that, when you needed to have leadership, and so a lot of us my age-ish learned to motivate by leadership, and that style of leadership is no longer needed. And so I have to be called out sometimes, because I'm used to maybe not so far as the sergeant goes, but we have to really have an appreciation for the fact that dictatorship and leadership in that perspective is no longer needed. However, good facilitators are needed. Facilitators are people who are trained to make sure that everybody gets to speak, and they're trained in a way where they keep the meetings going fairly, and a good facilitator is in great demand. And so I've taken my own personal life, I've taken my leadership skills and melded them into being more of a facilitator. A facilitator can get out of the way on command, and a leader cannot. So I don't want people here to think that I'm being in a leadership role when I'm offering to facilitate a workshop. Just to want to clear that up. Don't be afraid of me. I'm not a leader. Not anymore. I outgrew it.
Wow. Wow. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And I can see Glow just glowing in the dark there. She's loving it too. So, wow.
So to the request, I will be in integrity to my word, and I will come back next week with some strategy and some suggestions for times and topics, and I'll be much more organized by then. Oh, look at there. Somebody just put in a link to a YouTube on, oh, Michael. Who Moved My Cheese is on YouTube.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Michael.
You know, times have really changed.
We've got the library. We've got the librarian personality type in the room, cataloging everything and directing us to your local library.
Michael, you go. Boy, it used to be that you had to go get the book and read it. Nowadays, you can just go right on to YouTube. I didn't even know it was on there. So thanks for that little clue.
I'm going to sign off, but I just want to tell everybody it was kind of funny because Ananda saw the virtual background that I have, and she said she was interested in my background, and I really didn't know why she was asking that question. You know what? And it's a fake background.
Oh darn! I was kind of hoping it was a real library. I wanted to go there.
Yeah, I'm waiting for what's his name, the little wizard to come walking by. I can never remember his name. That book that lady wrote about the young wizard. I'm going to sign off, Jamin, and thank you. I'm going to watch that little video though. And I will say that right now I'm at work, and one of the things we're trying to address is we passed a climate emergency resolution here. And now what we're wrestling with is how to put that into action. And so the topic was timely in that, you know, this is going to help me maybe see a little better the things that are holding us back from getting the action steps into play. So thank you for that.
Beautiful. And that's what we're about to delve into coming up shortly. So So good to see you, Michael. Come and go as you please, everyone. As you need, as you please, just feel free to come and go. And we are recording, so you'll be able to catch up on what you missed. All right.
Long ago, in a land far away, there lived 4 little characters who ran through a maze looking for cheese to nourish.
I think that's coming from you, Ananda. Are you watching the video there?
Didn't mean to.
Oh, no. Anyway.
I can watch that later. I just clicked on it to copy it, but apparently it jumped ahead of me here. So I'm just going to copy that link, and yeah, Spencer Johnson. That's right. Okay. Let's see, back to the Zoom call. Here I am. All right, I'm also going to check out for a while. I'd like to come back in a couple hours and talk about intentional community living. And this starts to get more and more intentional as we understand our personalities and how we change. That's even more intentional. Okay, my friends, I will come check back. It's 3:25 my time. I'll check back around 5:25. How's that sound?
All right, continuing recording the Collabversation, the long form, and I'm also going to do a brief recording on the concise form just to kind of recap what we've been talking about. So continuing now. All right, welcome back to the Collabversation, concise recording. We just had an interesting exchange, and we're planning on doing some workshops associated with Who Moved My Cheese, understanding personality types, both our own and others, especially in the context of change. And I'll screen share quickly an image that we found from the book, Who Moved My Cheese. Here it is, real quick. We got these different personality types in the context of change. And there's also a cool video that Michael shared that's in the chat. So Ananda is offering to facilitate some workshops around this for understanding our personality types. And where we took the conversation then was, hey, through this process of understanding our different personality types, we can better organize ourselves for the massive changes that are happening and that we need to invoke, that we need to make happen in order to save, heal, and transform life on Earth. So that's the nutshell recap of that. And I'm pausing. So I just paused the concise recording. The long form recording continues. So we got 2 recordings going in parallel. It's kind of like the tortoise and the hare. The hare just zooms ahead and is recording everything. The tortoise just does little baby steps of recording. All right. Unless anyone has anything else they'd like to add right now, I'd like to get back to kind of the main thread of the conversation. And so I'll just screen share recap real quick now that we're pausing the concise version and share. Just need to pull up the screen here real quick. Okay. Okay, so here goes. So the context is we have these 2 most urgent problems: exponential planetary overheating and the destruction of the biosphere. I'm actually, to break it out, I'm gonna call this the intentional destruction of the biosphere. And what I really mean by that, it's not that people are setting out to destroy the world, but they are setting out to, level, say, 500 acres in the Amazon so that they can grow soybeans for money, right? Soybeans that get shipped to China to feed livestock that then feeds people, etc. It's definitely intentional. Exponential planetary overheating. I don't think there's anyone out there who's like intending for that to happen. So I'm just going to add that this is unintentional, but nonetheless very real. Anyway, so that's the context. We've got these 2 twin forces. Now, the destruction of the biosphere, I'm just going to put the intentional and unintentional destruction of the biosphere, because as exponential planetary overheating proceeds, that causes the destruction of the biosphere, creating droughts and perfect conditions for wildfires and forest fires, etc. That's unintentional, as is planetary overheating, but it's nonetheless happening. The intentional is, when they break out the chainsaws and intentionally slash and burn. So off of screen share for a moment. And all right. So in the context of these 2, I want to point out that however unintentional, nonetheless, humanity is very much responsible and very much at the source of both of these destructive forces: exponential planetary overheating and the destruction of the biosphere. We're at the source of it. We're causing it. And we also are at the source of solving these problems. And I think it is well worth exploring what is driving both of these. But since we've been at this for a little while now, I'm wondering if maybe we should take a break before going further. I'm going to pause recording and just, all right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Collabversation happening on the press conference, thepressconference.org, with the V included. And, we've gone on some really powerful tangents, but the main thrust of the story is we're at this critical moment right now where we have these 2 twin phenomena of exponential planetary overheating and the destruction of the biosphere. I would say that neither of those are intentional, but they're a direct consequence of how what humanity is doing here on the planet. And I think that's the root cause of it. In fact, I'd like to go digging for a couple images to kind of help make my point. So I think I might go image diving right now.
I spent a few years where my like hobby was to find the root cause of problems. And pretty much all, I mean, essentially, there isn't a problem that we have on the planet right now that you can't track down to greed. Greed being the ultimate cause of the problem. Too many people have to have too much individually for themselves so that somebody else has nothing. Can't be right.
Nope, definitely not. Definitely not. And I feel like, but rather than say, therefore, people are evil, I think that's just the game we were born into. We were born into the wrong game, and it's our job now to change the game.
Yeah.
And in the spirit of a picture is worth 1,000 words, I'm gonna go, how people talk about doing dumpster diving. Well, I'm gonna go image diving. Let's see what I can dredge up here.
I am familiar with dumpster diving.
Okay. I'm just going to pause recording for the moment. All right. So, and in fact, I'm going to record for the concise version as well. In 3, 2, 1. All right. Welcome back to the Collabversation. And I'm going to share a couple images that I found. So this is related to the planetary overheating and the destruction of life on Earth, right? So this image represents just, your average person who's just trying to accumulate wealth and make it in the world and burn hydrocarbons, burn gasoline, build a bigger house, get a newer car, newer clothes, whatever. I don't think this person, and I think we all see a little of ourselves in this person, is setting out to destroy the planet. They just want to get ahead and win at the game they were born into, right? The game of accumulation for individual hoarding, for individual survival, as I call it. So this is very much unintentional planetary overheating and planetary destruction caused by our behavior. And again, this is behavior within a game that we were born into. I don't think any of us chose this game. It's what we were all born into. Now, intentional destruction of the biosphere is the subject of this next image, right? Here's somebody chainsawing rainforest in the Congo, in this case, But this scene plays itself out, millions of chainsaws per day in millions of locations per day all around the world. And it's both to get the lumber, including very fine hardwoods like mahogany and rosewood and cedar and teak, but also to make way for animal agriculture, whether it's raising soybeans that get exported to feed livestock or open space for livestock to graze. And we're just destroying some of the most precious, fragile parts of Mother Earth in the process. So we're all familiar with that kind of larger story. So I just wanted to give some images to go with the context of these two twin phenomena: exponential planetary overheating and destruction of the biosphere. And I'm going to pause recording on the concise version, but continuing recording on the Collabversation. So, what is it that's driving these individuals? The guy with the chainsaw and the guy driving the fancy car with the fancy clothes on the way to or from his fancy mansion. I believe that in both cases, what's happening is all of us, and each and every one of us are trapped in a game called individual hoarding for individual survival. And it's partly hoarding the materials and food and other resources that we need to live a long time, but also part of it is increasingly hoarding for status. And but why do people seek status to begin with? So that they can hoard more, so that they can network with the right people and help co-create the right opportunities to do even more hoarding. So I really see this game that we're born into as the main driver of both exponential planetary overheating and destruction of the biosphere. And I just want to acknowledge really quick, these are not feel-good topics. we're not talking about this stuff because it makes us feel good. In fact, quite the contrary, quite the opposite. But we need to talk about this. And in fact, let me add that to the list here. So I got those images on the concise recording, which is now paused, but I'll restart it again once I add to this picture. I'm going to pause all recording for a second while I add to now. All right, recording the long form. I'm also going to continue recording the concise version in 3, 2, 1. All right, after a pause and having, looked at these scenarios of planetary overheating and destruction of the biosphere and what's driving it, let me share some images that I just sketched up. Okay. So these two problems, exponential planetary overheating and destruction of the biosphere, and of course these arrows go both ways, intentional and unintentional, as I showed in the last slides. So the big picture here, as I'm sketching, you have, excuse me, sunlight coming in, which passes through the greenhouse gases, which I've shown here as this kind of brown, dirty brown color. This visible spectrum sunlight from the sun is warming our planet. And normally that wouldn't be a problem because the warming, all this heat then gets emitted as infrared radiation that goes back into space. And so the planet is constantly cooling herself off that way. The only problem is with more and more greenhouse gases, more and more of that infrared radiation is getting reflected back to the Earth. And that's really what's been the main driver over the decades of that planetary overheating, is heat that is contained and not allowed to escape because of the greenhouse gases. And then we've gotten into this very vicious cycle as rising temperatures create droughts and perfect conditions for wildfires and forest fires, which generate more greenhouse gases and also reduce Mother Earth's ability to sequester greenhouse gases. So it's a really vicious cycle. And then add to that animal agriculture, which releases massive amounts of methane and also is the main driver of the intentional destruction of the biosphere. So with all that in mind, let's look at kind of the root problem of all of this, the root problem of, and I'll just flash the images on the screen again, because we've kind of got two big expressions of our root problems. We have people trying to accumulate more and more and more, and really very focused on that and not really focused on anyone else or anything else, much, including Mother Earth herself. So it's this imperative to hoard and to flaunt our wealth and accumulate more and more and more. That's the main driver behind exponential planetary overheating. But then you have destruction of the biosphere, where it's also being driven by that, because this guy is chopping down this tree because he needs money to feed himself and feed his family. So the image here that I want to show in terms of getting to the roots of all these problems, the root problem is what I call the all-day monopoly game of hoarding, endless hoarding. We were all born into this game, and we are all trapped within this game to varying degrees. So what are the solutions? Well, we have some very practical solutions, which despite their practicality are not getting implemented. And that's what we need to take a look at in a moment. But the short-term solution to planetary overheating is SRM. SRM is to planetary overheating like the fire department is to a burning house. It is the one singular solution to putting that fire out, SRM, in the very short term, because the fires are growing exponentially, the planet is overheating exponentially, and we need the equivalent of a planetary fire department, which at the present moment does not exist. Right? I mean, can you imagine New York City without fire departments, without a fire department and firehouses all over the place? That would suddenly become the single most urgent thing to do in New York City, even more urgent than getting Donald Trump out of city business, is SRM, solar radiation management. Now, the long-term solution is very different from SRM. It's drawdown. Once you've cooled the planet using SRM, you can now set about long-term healing, and that is drawdown, sequestering carbon that's already in the atmosphere and reducing emissions. So if the fire department is the analogy for the short-term solution of SRM, the analogy for the long-term solution of drawdown is kind of a combination of don't let your kids play with matches and build houses with fire-resistant building materials. Those are among the best ways to prevent fires burning houses in the future, but not very good at stopping a fire once it's started. Right? For that, we need SRM. That's the fire department. So I'm just going to put SRM here, a planetary fire department. Okay. Now, in terms of the destruction of the and I put and and there's something else. And this and points to the elimination of animal agriculture. That's probably the most significant long-term solution of all, as it directly impacts drawdown. Ending animal agriculture is the best thing we can do for drawdown. But it's also the best thing we can do for stopping planetary overheating in as far as a long-term solution. It does not replace the short-term solution of solar radiation management, but complements it. They operate at totally different timescales. The destructive impacts operate at totally different timescales. Humanity has the potential to end animal agriculture today. So that can happen very quickly, but in terms of the impacts on planetary overheating, anything drawdown related takes time. SRM operates immediately. Now, the other major solution in terms of destruction of the biosphere, both short-term and long-term, there is one far and away number one solution to ending the destruction of the biosphere, and that is ending animal agriculture, period. Getting everyone to go plant-based. Okay. So I'm just going to put numbers next to these main problems, 1, 2, and 3. We have number 1, exponential planetary overheating, number 2, destruction of the biosphere, and number 3, the all-day monopoly game that we were born into and are trapped into, which I call individual hoarding for individual survival. So now with all this on the table, I want to create a flow chart, which I'll sketch out. First, I'm going to pause. Okay, so I paused recording. Pause. Actually, I'm going to let the Collabversation continue recording as I sketch this out, and then I'll return to recording the Collabversation, the short version. So here's the flow chart I want to make. So we've got 1, 2, 3 in terms of problems. And then we have these solutions, which basically the two big solutions, the two most urgent, are SRM and ending animal agriculture. So we've got 3 problems and 2 solutions. So let's create, a bit of a flow chart here. And I'm going to do it in the following way. Let me know what you think of this, Marco. We have problems. I'll just use the same format. 1, 2, 3, heating, destruction, and monopoly.
Okay, I definitely vote get rid of the problems.
What do you mean get rid of the problems?
Oh, they should be solved.
Oh, yeah. No, that's why I'm going to put solutions on the left. So the monopoly is what I call this root problem, and it's the main driver of overheating and destruction of the biosphere. Yeah.
Definitely.
And so the solutions we have SRM, which directly addresses planetary overheating. And we have getting rid of animal agriculture. As the main solution to the destruction of the the destruction of the biosphere. And it's also a major contributor to overheating. But what's our solution to the all-day monopoly game, right? And I would say the solution to that is abundance. Abundance for all people. And the elimination of fear. Clean this up a little bit. Recording, that's what it's there for. These are the solutions to getting people out of the addiction to the all-day monopoly game. And now I'm going to make another drawing down here, which oh yeah, okay. So just bear with me, Marco. Are you digging this so far?
Yeah, I'm thinking the fear is not quite right, but I haven't. You know, I think it's the. It's not really fear. Fear is useful, keeps us from doing stupid shit. And but
okay, I should call it then fear of scarcity.
Yeah.
Fear of scarcity.
FOMO.
Thank you,
fear of missing out.
Yeah, but ultimately you're missing out on what? See, like the fear of say missing out on Bitcoin is really the fear of scarcity.
Right.
No one would give a shit about Bitcoin if everyone had plenty, right? It would be yet another card game on the playground, right? But it's become a game of survival, right? Fear of scarcity. Fear of scarcity and I would say fear of scarcity and the singular, I'm going to call it solution of hoarding. You want to survive? There's only one thing to do, hoard, right? So I'm going to now condense this down. Problems, solutions, and I'm going to put here starter motor. Starter motor solutions. To start a certain pathway. So problems, overheating, destruction of the biosphere and monopoly. We have the tangible solutions of ending animal agriculture, ending fear and hoarding, and let's see, SRM, animal agriculture, abundance for all, ending fear. I'm going to pause for